Welcome to another episode of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and today we are on our 21st in-depth character review where we are looking at the super highly requested Aayla Secura. This is going to be our episode to close out our Jedi Week faction special that started last week, and there are so many more Jedi we could not do an in-depth review of this week, but we will review them sometime. When I counted up the votes, Aayla Secura totally crushed the competition, but Qui-Gon Jinn and Yoda were close competitors, but we will review those guys at some other point here. And also, since this will be our last episode for the Jedi Week special, please, in the comments down below, let me know what the next faction special should be. But to get onto today's episode, let's go ahead, pull up the Hall of Fame, and see what we did last time. In our last review, we looked at Ahsoka Tano, and we placed her in the Knight category. Where will this General Aayla Secura fall on this Hall of Fame, and how good is she in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes? Well, stay tuned, and all of those questions will soon be answered. And like how we always do it, let's go ahead and talk about the history of Aayla Secura before we get into the good stuff here. Aayla Secura was born on the planet of Ryloth, and she served as a Jedi General during the Clone Wars and led many battles for the Republic. When it came to her fighting style, she utilized something known as Form 4. This was more of an acrobatic combat style which may be used to defend against incoming projectiles. One of her most notable presence in the Star Wars universe was when she was sent to be a part of the Jedi rescue team to Geonosis in order to save Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Padme Amidala. We saw her story come to an end during the execution of Order 66, where without notice, her clone troopers turned on her and carried out Palpatine's commands to eliminate all the Jedi. And in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, we see Aayla Secura carry over her acrobatic fighting style and her ability to lead her allies into battle with the potential to ward off deadly effects in order to ensure they fight as hard as possible. But speaking of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, let's talk about how you can unlock Aayla Secura after talking about that brief introduction of her. And in case you're curious about the history, Aayla Secura used to be a Chromium exclusive character, meaning you had to spend money in order to get her, and a few months ago they finally made her a free-to-play character. And the avenue which you may unlock her through the free-to-play method is the Cantina Battle Node 5B. And of course, to this day, you can still get Aayla Secura in the Chromium packs. But you need to know why you should not farm this character. So let's go ahead and talk about her key stats before looking at mods, abilities, leader capabilities, all that stuff. And to start us off, let's go ahead and take a look at the pros and see what she is exceeding in. And the first thing you really need to know is her health. She's actually doing very well in this category for a character of her status, and she is number 32 in health. The average is 19,166, and Aayla Secura is at 21,490, putting her in the top 35% in the game. And let's go ahead and scoot on over to the close relative of health and talk about protection. Also, just like health, she is number 32 in this category as well. The average here is 19,617, and Aayla Secura has a very solid 24,134, putting her yet again in the top 35% in the game. But this might not seem as impressive, but when you look at the median, she is also way above the median in both health and protection. The median is 17,000, and she is exceeding in this category as well. So very good again for a character of her status. Now, maximum damage, I am so glad to see this in the pros section with those other stats we just mentioned, and she is number 14 in maximum damage. The average maximum damage in this game is 5,453, and Aayla Secura has 7,371, putting her in the top 15% in maximum damage dealers in the game, so yet another great thing to have up here. Next thing on the pros list is armor. She is number 38 in this category, with the average being 227. Aayla Secura is ever so slightly above this at 235, keeping her in the top 45% in this category. So in case you're curious, all this means is that she will be able to reduce damage much better than other characters in the game, in turn meaning she will last a lot longer in your battle. So something to keep in mind. And the last thing I have to mention is that she has 10% health steal even before considering her kit, and some health steal is always better than none. And with that said, let's go ahead and transition over to the average. What is she okay at? And she's okay at a couple things here. The first thing you need to know is her speed, and she is tied for number 46 with I'm a Gundai, Stormtrooper, and Luke Skywalker. The average speed in this game is 127, and Aayla Secura is at 125, so again, ever so slightly below that average, putting her in the top 50%. But this is not a huge concern considering the fact that she will attack quite often due to her kit, but let's go ahead and save that for later. The next thing you need to know about is potency. She is number 58 in this category, with the average and median being just around 30%. Aayla Secura is yet again slightly below this at 28%, putting her in the bottom 50% in the game. And this is important to know about because she can apply stun, and the higher the potency is, the higher the likelihood she can apply stun without being resisted. And the last okay thing we have here is armor penetration. She is number 52 in this category, with the average being 53. Aayla Secura is at 44, again putting her ever so slightly in the bottom 50%. And all armor penetration means is how likely are you able to pierce through someone's armor and apply as much damage as possible, and she is just around the okay mark for this. And lastly, the stuff that Chewbacca's gotta cry about. We have to look at the cons. What is she bad at? And we see that she is lacking in one thing, and that is maximum basic damage. She is number 62, and numerically speaking, she just missed having this in the average section and having no cons, but numerically speaking, this does fall in the cons section, where the average is 4,251. Aayla Secura is at 4,030, putting her in the bottom 40%. So not the worst thing in the world, but just enough to land in the cons list when we talk about straight numbers. But as we always say, numbers don't tell the full story here. There's so much more to learn about, and that's why we look at her kit. And her kit is definitely a fun and useful one, which we see with her first attack, which is known as Inspiring Strike. Now, this is her basic attack, which deals physical damage to a single enemy with a 35% chance to call an ally to assist. And if the assisting ally is a Jedi, they deal 50% more damage. And without mods and everything, this does about 3,648 to about 4,030. And this is one of the more powerful basics for a Jedi in the game. Although the base damage is somewhat below par, the potential to call in an ally makes this a deadly attack. Aside from the opportunity to call someone in to assist, we see that she's kind of like the Dooku for Jedi when we look at her unique soon, where when she uses her basic, she counterattacks, calls someone to assist, and she has the possibility to stun someone. So very, very awesome basic here. The next ability that she has here is known as Survivor. She deals physical damage to a target enemy and recovers health equal to 65% of the damage dealt. Now, this is her powerful attack, which does 6,669 to about 7,371 before mods and all that. And as mentioned in the data, this is a very powerful attack when we talk about just the numbers. It's not going to be the most insane attack like Rey or IG-86 or Wedge and Biggs, who can do like over 20,000-30,000 damage, but it is still a very strong attack. The opportunity to gain 65% health equal to the damage dealt makes her a very strong independent healer. Before mods and critical damage, she could potentially recover 4,791 health on this attack, so very good. Following from her two attacks, let's go ahead and look at her leader ability, which is not the most interesting, but it can be useful in the right situation. Her leader ability is called Jedi Valor, and Jedi allies gain 40% tenacity and recover 10% of their max health when they ward off an effect. Not going to be the best leader for many events because you will not be sacrificing this for leaders like Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm a Gundai, Anakin, General Kenobi, but this is fantastic for phase 1 of the AAT raid. Grievous and his gang apply a ton of debuffs, and this just allows her and her fellow Jedi to resist as much of those as possible, and upon resisting, they gain health. So with the potential to gain health from Aayla Secura's leader ability and for Jedi to gain health because they just get a bonus for the AAT raid for that, they will be gaining a lot of health to stay in the raid as much as possible, which is why Aayla Secura is one of the best Jedi leaders for phase 1. And the last ability we have here is known as Superior Riposte, and this is where the magic happens. Aayla Secura has an additional 10% critical chance, 65% counter chance, and a plus 50% counter damage. In addition, she stuns her target for 1 turn whenever she critically hits. So a very strong unique for a Jedi and a character in general. The increased critical chance means she can apply stun more frequently, hypothetically speaking, and her counterattack has so many opportunities to use her basic, which may call an assist and stun a character. When paired with an I'm a gun die lead, this means she has a 100% chance to counter, and she has a 75% additional counter damage, meaning on a counterattack she can do up to 7,052 on her basic. So very good. So that is everything her kit has to offer, but there's one more thing we have to talk about before we get to the subjective part of the review, and that is the gear. In terms of raid gear, everyone needs it at some point, and the average amount needed is 3 pieces. Aayla Secura is one of the lucky 7 that only needs 1 piece of raid gear, and she needs this piece at gear 8, and that only piece that she needs is a Mark V fusion furnace. Getting into the nice and shiny gold gear, we see that the average is 200 pieces, and Aayla Secura, she's kind of above that at 220 pieces, and the good news is you only need 1 Mark 8 biotech implant to get from gear 10 to gear 11. And now we have to talk about the purple gear, the stuff everyone loves to see when they spend 50 sim tickets and only get 1 stun cuff. We see that the average amount of purple gear needed is 1,110, and Aayla Secura, she is number 40 in terms of purple gear requirements, where she needs 1,165 pieces. And if you're looking at the most popular pieces, she will need a variety of things, but by far the most frequented piece that you will need to get, as well as one that a lot of other characters need, are the Mark III CNR hollow projectors, where she will need 100 pieces of those, and she starts needing them very early at gear 6. And lastly, in terms of blue, green, and white gears, she is below average in all those, and especially below average in the blue gear. So with all of that business out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about my subjective opinion, where I talk about tips, recommendations, Yoda's checklist, her mortal enemies, and her best friends, all that great stuff. And I need to first talk about my thoughts of this character. As mentioned in my Jedi farming guide the other day, Aayla Secura is one of those Jedi that should be in your inventory, especially if you want to get Yoda. She got released from the Chromium packs not too long ago, and this is especially great for people beginning in the game, since Jedi are just a great faction overall and just great to start off with, and a lot of them are great in the end game. Aayla Secura's kit has not evolved much since her release when the game first came out, but it is so well designed that it still serves well today. Kind of like a timeless car design, where it was designed in a whole different era, but it kind of looks like it was designed just yesterday. Her speed is not that low, and it is workable, but she will attack very frequently, notwithstanding speed, because of her counterattack, and she will hit very hard with a high chance to stun. If you mod her correctly, you will have a ton of opportunity to constantly stun someone when they attack you. So although she is categorized as a support character, in my heart she is truly an attacker and has stats very close to Anakin when we look at her damage output, as well as what her kit does in general. On top of counterattacking, stunning, she also has a very high health pool as well as protection pool. And in the right lineup, she is a very deadly character, which we will talk about momentarily. But with all this in mind, she will not be a game-breaking character like the B2 Super Battle Droid, Sun Fac, Palpatine. But even if she is not a cross-meta character or a game-breaking one, that does not mean she is a bad character, and she is a great character overall. But if you are going to use her, which I do recommend you get her at some point, you need to know who her mortal enemies are, and it's just like the other Jedi in the game. Darth Maul, he is very deadly now against Jedi, even more so than before, because he has an AoE attack that applies daze and does more damage to Jedi. And in case you don't know, daze is a new debuff that came out not too long ago, and when it is applied to you, you cannot counterattack and you cannot assist, which are 2 main mechanics that Aayla Secura depends on. You will also see some mortal enemies that just have anti-Jedi synergy, like Palpatine, Dooku, Vader. General Grievous is another one. He has anti-Jedi synergy, and he has a basic which cannot be countered attacked. So General Grievous can keep smacking Aayla Secura with his basic, and she will never ever counterattack. And some other mortal enemies are just very big, tanky, taunting characters, because they will just absorb all of her counterattacks, they will absorb all of those stuns, and you will not be able to target someone like TIE Fighter Pilot, Emperor Palpatine, or Wigs. So another thing to consider here. Let's get to the more rosy subject and talk about her best friends. She has a ton of best friends that she sends goodnight messages and funny cat memes to, and pretty much all of the Jedi are her best friends, mainly because of her leader ability, as well as when she gets someone to assist off of her, they do more damage, but she especially loves I'm a Gun Die to increase her counterattack to 100% and to increase her counterattack damage to plus 75%. But unlike many other Jedi, she works great in non-Jedi teams as well. I particularly find her the most deadly in squads that are based around counter-attacking. So for example, one of the more deadly squads that she can be in is a squad that has Fives, Sunfac, as well as Aayla Secura under a leader of your choice, which I most frequently find to be Anakin Skywalker as the leader. With this, it's very deadly. You go ahead and do an AoE attack, and then they come back with Fives, Sunfac, Aayla Secura, stunning you, removing your buffs, as well as applying speed down. A very deadly combo, and that's even assuming that she does not call someone else to assist off of her basic. And because of that basic, there are just so many opportunities to have her work well with. Like, for example, you can get Dooku to assist off her basic, and he can get an additional 2 attacks, which would annoy the heck out of your enemy. So feel free to get crazy with Aayla Secura here. And a couple more things, so let's talk about the mods. And by far, without a doubt, you really want to put critical chance and critical damage mods, maybe even a full critical chance set, because the higher her critical chance, the more likely she is to stun characters anytime she attacks. Critical damage for more damage output. However, you do have other options if you don't have critical chance and critical damage. Health will also be great because she has a high health pool already, and just amplifying that will just make her even better in terms of health. But I would definitely recommend you promote her to critical chance and critical damage at some time. And primary and secondary mods, speed is not a huge concern for her since Aayla Secura counters a lot, but it's always great to increase. Potency is also important to ensure that stun sticks or that critical damage attack happens. Protection and health amplify her already good health pool and protection pool, so you might also want to consider investing in those. And critical chance and critical damage primary and secondary mods for the same reasons mentioned above. Alright guys, and you know what time it is. Let's go ahead and talk about Yoda's do or do not checklist, where we quickly go ahead, look at many events in the game, and say if she's a good character or a bad character. And first and foremost, probably one of the more important things is Arena, and I've already mentioned this so many times. She works with many great squads, so definitely do. Probably won't be cross meta, but she is definitely a great character to use for Arena and works in many different lineups. Galactic War, just an extension of Arena. Definitely go ahead and use Aayla Secura. High health pool, high protection, counterattacks, a lot of damage. Great, great, great. Light side battles, definitely do for the same reasons as above. Cantina battles, just like the others, do because of the same reasons. Mod challenges, Jedi can get you the defense mod challenges done. Although not the most useful mod, she can help you complete it, so let's go ahead and say do. Now the Yoda challenge is also a do. I wish she was a free-to-play character when I got Yoda, because she would have made it a lot easier. So if you can't get Aayla Secura for the Yoda event, you will be very happy. Ships is a do not, unfortunately, not because of her fault, just because she doesn't have a ship in the game, but that could change in the future. Now, for the raids, I'm going to go ahead and ease off the requirements. Usually, I'm very strict that you have to be a good character in order to get a do, so from now on, I'm going to be a lot more lenient, and if you're at least a good character, you'll most likely get in here. And for the Rancor raid, when we're kind of being very loose about it, I would say do. She can get some people to assist off her, she does good damage, she can stun the guards, so let's go ahead and say do. AAT raid, without a doubt in my mind, definitely a do. She is one of the best phase 1 leaders in the game for Jedi, so you definitely want to get her if you want to conquer that first phase. Now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's go ahead, pull up the Hall of Fame, and see where we will rank this character in the game. And from Grandmaster to Youngling, we are going to place Aayla Secura in the Master category. Aayla Secura is by far a fantastic character and a highly recommended character for everyone to get, since she is probably the 3rd or 4th best Jedi in the game. She has a kit that has stood the test of time, but she will not be a game-breaking character or a cross-meta character, which is usually reserved for Grandmasters only. Counterattacks can easily be controlled when you use her mortal enemies, and if she can't counter or if she cannot have someone assist off her, then she kind of loses her purpose. But overall, definitely a great and fun character. And on that bombshell, I do hope you enjoyed this episode and enjoyed Jedi Week. We released a lot of Jedi reviews and guides, so please, if you haven't checked them out, go ahead and give them a peek. And be sure to comment down below on what we should review next and what you think of this character in general. And as always, my friends, please leave me a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or Facebook, which I always forget to mention, and we will talk again soon. Peace out.
Wake up.